Cheryl Abshire, and I'm the former Chief Technology Officer at the Calcasieu Parish Schools in Lake Charles, Louisiana, where I spent a 40-plus year career as a teacher, a librarian, a school principal, and then almost 25 years as a Chief Technology Officer. I've recently retired from the district, and I'm fortunate to be collaborating with the K-12 team of professionals at the Ultimate Kronos Group. Now, you're going to meet some other people on today's webinar, but before we really get started in earnest, I want to speak to you for just a moment about what's going on in education today. And I know you're probably sitting there thinking, any of us know really what's going on in education? But I think we can all agree that no one anticipated the multitude of challenges that have impacted our personal, our professional, and really our emotional lives in 2020. These changes came on so abruptly. In March, everyone's hair was on fire in school districts. We didn't know what was coming next. We didn't know how to adapt. We didn't know how to move forward. And it came so quickly, but we were forced to adjust. We had to, what I call, pivot, and pivot very, very quickly. It's been so difficult and challenging, but I would suggest to you today, opportunistic for those of us in education. School districts across the United States would never have imagined that function and access to public and private education, well, we'd have to administer it remotely. Not only would we be teaching remotely, we would be managing the district and making sure all of the critical functions of the district move forward while we were not at our traditional desks. And like so many of these functions and responsibilities, educators in classrooms, remotely, hybrid, and in administration, it all had to be done and meet these challenges. And so I would suggest to you that what's happened is that the face of education has been changed. And I would suggest changed forever. School districts across the country and schools are being asked in a very deliberate way to do much more with less in resources, less in people, less in everything we depend on, but make sure we capitalize and can still perform and produce. So let's think about that for just a moment. We're all giving it everything we have and have done so for generations. But quite frankly, today's world, the situation we find ourselves in today and moving forward is asking us to do even more. So how are you going to do it? I would suggest to you, you're going to do it by thinking outside of the box. I would say as a technologist, making sure that the technology is working for you and that you're using systems in a way that makes your district agile, performance excellence, and efficient in ways you have never been before. Who's going to be impacted? All of us. All of us are being impacted and will be impacted going forward in this opportunistic new world that we will work, teach, and live in. So what's the outcome going to look like? I would say it's up to you. It's up to you to find robust, reliable solutions that will make your district more efficient and effective, no matter what that crystal ball holds. Are we going to have education look like it did before? Just go right back to the same way because we were always doing it that way? Or are we going to move forward and think about this real challenge as a way of opportunity to do things differently and in a better way? As I said before, that world is ever changing, and it's no different in our education arena. And we're going to meet, and I would suggest to you, exceed the expectations of our parents, of our community, of the students in ways we've never done before. You know, we all know there has never been a challenge that education was really afraid of. We fully embrace these challenges, as we've done in the past, for the betterment of our students, to improve our communities. I am fortunate and honored to be working over the next few months with the K-12 team of the Ultimate Kronos Group to kind of discuss and ruminate about these ideas of how can we do more with less. I hope that you will join me and others as we think about these thought leadership webinars and podcasts that we're going to provide for you. I'd like to thank you for your time. And now I'm going to turn it over to two professionals in the ed community that work for UKG, Dan Tanner and Rob Tibbs.
Thanks, Cheryl, for your time. We greatly appreciate it. Yes, it's a different world out there and we're living in, and I know education will meet the challenges that are put before us. Hello and welcome, everyone, to the Ultimate Kronos Group, also known as UKG, Focus K-12 webinar, Building an Engaging K-12 HCM Experience in Challenging Times. We know how busy you are and we greatly appreciate the time given. My name is Dan Tanner and I'm the sales director for the K-12 team. I have worked 25 years in education as a former teacher, building administrator, technology trainer and consultant, and now a sales professional across the United States and the international markets. I know education and have been in the similar situation that you are experiencing.
Hi, everybody. I'm Rob Tibbs. I'm our industry principal and subject matter expert for the UKG K-12 team. I have an extensive background in education, much like Dan, but I worked on the finance side as the director of payroll for Jefferson County Schools in Alabama. I've been in your shoes, much like Dan, and understand the difficulty and the amount of time it takes to dedicate to selecting a system that will provide you the much needed support and resources for the staff to do all the many projects that you undertake. As Dan mentioned, I am K-12, he's K-12, we have a K-12 team and really understand your needs. Districts are faced with doing more with less resources of people, time, and budget. So I'd like to introduce you to two people that have sat in your shoes and really understand what you're going through and talk about their workforce management and human capital functions.
Hey everyone, it's Dan Tanner again. Thanks so much. We've got three exciting people from Cherokee County Public Schools just outside of Atlanta, Georgia. Ken Owen is the Chief Financial Officer. Rick Ballou is the Chief Human Resource Officer, and Brad Orth is the Executive Director for Information Services for the school district. They know exactly what you're going through and are sitting in the same seat that you are and continue to do the job. We've got a couple of questions that we want to ask them. Many districts continue to evaluate HR solutions while determining if their existing ERP will meet their needs. We have a couple of questions for you, and so let's get started. So, Ken, what were the key motivators that triggered Cherokee County Schools to begin search for an HCM solution? Why not just use your ERP that you have in place for your HR requirements?
It's a great question. We tried using ERP for that purpose, but Cherokee County School District, like all school districts, we're very labor heavy, labor intensive, right? So most of our budget, in fact, almost 91% of our budget this year is tied up in people. That's salaries and benefits. If you can't manage that, then you can't manage your budget, obviously. So in our previous experience, we had a very difficult time managing the number of positions that were out there in our schools. When I asked the question, how many people do we have employed in our schools, I got answers, but then that didn't match up to the expenditures that were going out the window every month, right? So for me, the primary motivator was get a handle on position control, right? Know how many people you have employed, know what you're paying them, make sure you're paying them the appropriate amount, and that way you can manage your budget. My job is to inform the board and the superintendent monthly of where we stand on budget, right? If I can't tell them that, then I'm not going to be a CFO for very long. Right? And I like being the CFO, so I'd like to keep my job. So that was a motivator for me. I was new to CFO position at the time that we started down this path. And it was something I saw that absolutely had to be done. ERP was not getting that job done for us, so we had to go in a different direction.
Great, I appreciate that.
And honestly, I came on late onto the scene. I think we were maybe 6 months into implementation, and I had been in other districts. And the one thing that I was happy to see with us going to a human capital management system like Kronos was to be able to manage your data and get to your data, because the life cycle of our employees obviously starts before we hire them, and
Right.
to be able to manage that data in a way that we can leverage it to get the very best people is really important. So, and then having someone like Brad, we got to brag on Brad here. He was instrumental, having a really good tech guy that understands both finance and human capital and the implications that all that means to the board, and making sure that we're responsible fiscally, but also responsible on how we manage our people is paramount.
Excellent.
And like you said, with an ERP, we've discussed this internally. ERPs are great from a functional and transactional level. They're designed to integrate well with themselves, but not necessarily others. So an HCM, like Rick said, allowed us to address our total human capital process from initiation to conclusion, you know, when they get onboarded to the offboarding. And we develop them, we leverage those assets. Like Ken said, they're the largest expenditure for a school district, accounting for over 90% of that. Monthly, we spend over $32 million on labor.
Mm-hmm.
So the risk versus reward, the rewards of having a total HCM far outweigh the benefits we could get through an ERP system.
Great.
That's great. Thanks for sharing. So let's shift focus a little bit. And you know, as we've discussed, you've had an HCM solution for a while now in your district. So, you know, what specific benefits and successes have you achieved with your HR strategy?
Rick, you want to start with that?
Sure, yeah. So I think the most important piece, in my opinion, has been within HCM, the communication, and I know other school districts that'll be listening to this understand this. It's extremely important for finance and HR to be on the same page, because as Ken stated earlier, we run everything from payroll through that. We're constantly crunching data, and for us to be able to be on the same page monthly is so extremely important. And for us to be able to get that data, to be able to report out to our superintendent at a moment's notice is very important to us. So that alone is extremely important to us. And then also within our divisions, and I don't want to speak for Ken, and he can add to this too, we've been able to build in tremendous efficiencies with our people. You know, the people that are in the weeds every day in Kronos, once they've had that understanding of how HCM works and how it links to Munis, our ERP system, that has really cleaned up a lot of the mistakes that all of us go through in all our districts as far as processing payroll, because it's very complicated. It's extremely complicated. You have benefits, you have payroll, you have, and then managing your human capital as well there. So that's been a tremendous asset. And then from an HR standpoint, it's really important to remember that, you know, you need to have a good HCM system in that it starts before people even enter the system, right? Like I'm looking at data with Ken, with Brad, just before we even recruit, to have and leverage a recruitment plan on what do we need. We have a big initiative on how to diversify our workforce, which is extremely important to us as well. So to be able to get at that data, and then also what kind of onboarding experience are we providing for our employees? How are we taking care of them through the life cycle? And then also how we're using our HCM system to offboard them as well. So, you know, basically that life cycle is a lot easier to manage. It's a lot more robust. You know what I mean? You can pivot very quickly in the system that we're using. So that's high level without getting into the weeds, but those are some of the pluses that I see.
I mean, it just takes you back. I'm sorry, Ken, I was just going to say, it just takes you back to what are the steps and processes from a pre-hire to retire to make sure that it's a seamless process from the beginning to the end.
Absolutely. And it is, to echo what Rick said, it is so important for HR and finance to work together about the budgeting, pulling the data, looking at the same data, that we're not pulling from two different systems. He's looking at one set of data and I'm looking at another. It doesn't work. And that's where we were prior to having this complete HCM and compliance with policy. That is so big. So much of what we did previously was policy was not baked into the system. So you had one-offs here. Everywhere was a one-off. And you're not treating your employees right when you're doing that. You're making individual decisions, but it's really a policy decision. And if your policies are not working for your employees, then change your policies. We were not managing that very well previously. And you got to treat your people right. We are labor intensive. We want to treat our people right because we succeed when they're successful, right? And so we want to make sure that they are treated well, paid appropriately, and treated with all the respect that they are due.
And another point too is that with our system, our employees have access to our system.
Absolutely.
So for instance, so they can go into to see what their benefits look like. They can make changes through our system, and we can communicate through our system. So that's a huge lift when it comes to efficiencies and really for our employee experience.
Yeah, I will say this: we pay over 6,000 employees every month, right? It's a big lift. It's a big lift every month. But because of the efficiencies that we have been able to gain, I do that with a payroll department of 5 people. That's amazing, absolutely amazing that we're able to accomplish that with just 5 people. And getting it right every month, being accurate. As Rick said about, we all have errors that we face, right? When you're doing a lot of work, you have errors. We have tremendously reduced the number of errors because everything is in one system instead of moving it from hire and checking experience and education level and all that, all the way through paying. It's all in one system, and we can check it, and our employees can check it. As Rick said, they can go in and look at anything within the system, or not anything, but almost anything that pertains to them: their pay, their benefits, their withholdings, direct deposit, what their experience level is. All those things are in one place for everyone.
How many days they have off? They can request their days off through the system as well.
That's absolutely huge. Leave accruals and taking leave is huge.
And let's step back just a minute for the benefits of an HCM too. Part of the benefits is not just the technology. We always talk here at Cherokee about aligning our people, our processes, and our technology. Whereas Kronos has been that enabler from a technological standpoint, we had to assess and re-engineer our processes to leverage the benefits that an HCM offers us. And that goes to the point of an ERP versus an HCM. An ERP, like we said, is transactional. Mm-hmm. Well, you can do transactions any number of ways. We didn't digitize our paper processes. We re-engineered those processes to streamline and gain those efficiencies that Ken is talking about. And we use that with different aspects. And again, what Ken and Rick are talking about, we look at the system at HCM from different perspectives. We look at it from our employees. We look at it from our administrators. We look at it from our state. We have to integrate and report at a statewide level to get our funding to pay those labor costs. Mm-hmm. So from a compliance management, an HCM has allowed us to easily adapt and report as well.
And that's so important, as Brad just mentioned, the funding part. If we don't report our people correctly to the state, then we don't get the money for those people, right? That's huge. Again, that's make or break a budget. And that's not apparent in today, that's apparent next year because it lags a year, right? The funding from the state the information and the funding lags a year. So if we misreport today, we won't know it on the bottom line until next year, and we can't have that. So it's got to be accurate and it's got to be real time so that we can test it.
Data analytics become critical to that. How we capture what data we do capture, how we capture it, when we capture it, and then how we can analyze that so that we're proactive in those decisions.
That's great, guys. Thank you so much. We really appreciate the time that you've given. You've answered some key questions regarding ERP versus HCM, why and where, and what the differences and challenges and similarities that those experience. We really appreciate your time, and we appreciate the partnership that we have with Cherokee County Public Schools. Thank you again. Have a great day, and we appreciate your time.
Thanks, Danny. Thanks, Rob.
As you can see, you're not alone. Education agencies all over the United States are tasked with more and more work with less people and limited budgets and resources. Does that sound familiar to you? I bet it does. Workforce and human capital management solutions can and will make a positive impact on hard and soft savings to your school district. You've known us, UKG, for workforce management solution, the UKG Ready Time for School. We've heard your HR needs, and we are here to answer the call with an introduction to our newest family member of products, UKG Ready Time for School Plus, with a specific focus on human capital management functionality.
Hi everyone, my name is Richard. I am a solutions consultant here at UKG. I'm excited to be with you here today and show you our HCM offering, which we're calling Time for School Plus. Personally, I have spent the last 10 years working as a payroll professional and working in HCM implementations directly. So the way that I like to show the product is kind of from firsthand experience. I like to talk to you and show you how I used to use this specific HCM product, or how I wish I could have used it, because we have introduced some new features that didn't exist. So it's a lot of very great modern day HCM technology. We're already helping many school districts of all sizes with this exact same solution. So we've learned a lot throughout the way, and I'm excited to show you how others are using it and how you may be able to use the HCM tools that we're offering today in our Time for School Plus HCM offering. As you may or may not already be familiar, at UKG, we already offer a very robust timekeeping and accruals and leave management system to school districts. But with our Time for School Plus solution, we've introduced a whole nother layer of HCM product offering to the school districts, everything from recruiting all the way to payroll and benefits. And the neat thing about our HCM solution, or our human capital management solution, is that it exists as one employee record. So the same employee record that exists in the HR profile, for example, we're tracking their jobs, their certifications, we're tracking in payroll their pay rates, and we're also tracking their timesheets. That is the same employee record throughout the entire product. So you're not actually dealing with multiple different types of kind of bolt-on modules. It is one solution where you have the ability to turn on benefits, to turn on performance management. By default, we can have those items turned off if that's not something that you're looking to use in the solution. And as Brad and Ken mentioned earlier, a lot of ERPs do offer these types of features, these types of, maybe contracts or or onboarding features, but that's all they really are. They're features. They're not really their bread and butter. It's not something that they spend a lot of R&D money on to fully develop these products. So what I'm going to show you today is a modern version of maybe what you've been used to using, whether that's in your ERP system or that's being done on paper. We do talk to a lot of school districts who are still trying to manage onboarding and employee contracts on paper. And I just want to show you a few key elements of how the Time for School Plus solution can help you automate and make electronic things like employee onboarding, things like employee offboarding, employee contracts, and being able to track in an easy way certifications and those endorsements that come with certifications that are very specific to K-12 and school districts. And then also, I want to show you a little bit of our budget and position allocation control. I want to show you how you can easily build charts to see where you might be understaffed, where you might be overstaffed. We're living in a hard time right now when it comes to budgets and being able to manage our staff properly. And I want to show you how you can have visibility into how you're managing that budget and how you're able to quickly allocate it in the Time for School solution. The Time for School Plus solution, I should say. So as you may be familiar, we take a persona-based approach to our demonstrations, kind of what I alluded to at the beginning. I want to show you a day in the life of, a new hire, a day in the life of somebody who is already an employee at your school district and maybe is uploading a new document or a new certification that they need to maintain based on your policies. And then I also want to show you the solution from an administrator's perspective, from a principal's perspective, or somebody in HR, to show you how we give you the tools to be able to manage your workforce and your human capital. At the end of the day, this is your biggest asset are your people. So we want to show you how we can help you with that human capital management. I'm going to start today's demonstration from the perspective of an employee, specifically a new hire that I just am onboarding into my school district. What is my new hire experience and how do I get my new hire to complete their onboarding? So the very first thing that could happen when you introduce a new employee into the Time for School Plus solution is they can receive a welcome email. And of course, we can say, welcome to the team, we're happy to have you. And we can also include just some basic instructions. Here are your credentials. Here's your username and password to get into the system. So that way on day one, whether they're working remotely or they're working on campus, they can get to school and hit the ground running. So I'm going to log into the platform as Frank, who is our new hire, and I'm going to show you what that experience is like. When Frank first logs in to the Time for School Plus solution, the system knows that it is his first time getting into the solution. So he's presented with this pop-up, welcome to the team message, but also a little friendly reminder from your HR team to please check your to-do items and complete your onboarding task. As I mentioned, we want Frank to hit the ground running and get kind of the administrative stuff out of the way so he can get in the classroom or he can do whatever he needs to do to actually start his job. So he's going to go ahead and bypass that message. And for those of you who are already familiar with our Time for School product offering, you'll notice that the look and feel of the product is exactly the same. And that's because it is the same product. Our Time for School solution is our Time for School Plus solution. We are just turning on specific modules like onboarding and benefits and payroll if that is something that you wish to add to your already existing Time for School database, which you already may have. So I'm going to go up into my to-do bell here as the message told me to, and I'm going to start on my new hire checklist. So I can create a checklist for just about any type of scenario. Some very common ones that are currently being used are of course, a new hire checklist, a offboarding checklist. So when somebody leaves or separates from my district, I want to make sure I do process A through Z to get them offboarded and make sure that they're not continuing to be paid after they leave. So that's another checklist. Another way some school districts are using our checklists throughout the country are a return to school checklist. And sometimes that's specifically for your teachers or paras. In many cases, before the school year is up, districts are sending out a kind of, are you coming back next year type of a message, and therefore having those teachers sign a new employment contract or sign an updated employee handbook. So we can initiate these checklists by type of employee, and we can send them all out in mass so that you can keep track of them from an HR perspective very easily. And when I show you the administrator view of this product, you'll be able to see how you can see the progress and the status of those. So just wanted to give you a little bit of background, but to start here with my new hire checklist, I'm going to actually go right into the checklist as a new hire and complete my items. So in some scenarios, you may want to enforce that these items are completed in a very specific order. In my scenario, I obviously already completed my employee handbook somewhat out of order, so you have both of those options. The very first thing that I'm presented with is just review and update any personal information that we may not already have. So I can see that my HR generalist or HR professional already entered, my name and my middle initial, but they are missing my street address or my mailing address. So I can go ahead and update my home address and then also have the ability to enter a separate mailing address if I do have one. I'm also presented with a voluntary information that I can provide, so I can self-identify my ethnicity, whether or not I'm a veteran, and if you're using this solution to complete your EEO-1 reporting every year, my employees can be given this right at the beginning of their hire date, their self-identification voluntary information, so they can complete that as a part of their onboarding process. Usually when this is being done on paper, and this has happened to me personally, I sit down on my first day of work and I'm giving a stack of paperwork. And on every one of these forms, I have to put in my name, I have to put in my date of birth, and I have to put in my social security number and my address, right? It becomes very repetitive. The beautiful thing about doing onboarding electronically is we can include some of that information from the start. So this is the first time I open my I-9, I don't have to enter my name and my social security number. All of that information is already pre-populated for me. So not only does it save time from an onboarding perspective, but it really enhances the employee experience. I'm getting in, I'm doing what I need done so that I can actually start my job. Another benefit of having this done electronically is that it's somewhat dummy proof. So if I select I'm a US citizen, it's going to mark a lot of the fields that are no longer relevant to me as not applicable. So I'm not accidentally filling something in that isn't applicable to me because I'm a US citizen. I've onboarded a lot of college students or a lot of individuals who are fresh out of high school who've never seen an I-9, and I have to walk them through this because they don't know how to do it. This takes a lot of that legwork out of it because I'm able to automate specific things and kind of make it dummy proof, as I mentioned earlier. Once I submit my I-9, my manager or my HR generalist is going to get, part 2 of the I-9 so that they can verify my documents. So that part can also be done electronically within the onboarding system. As I go through the rest of these, I'm going to complete my federal withholding form. So my new W-4. As you may or may not be aware, in 2020, the IRS released a new W-4. The other benefit of having this electronic onboarding is that you're always going to be presented with the most up-to-date state or federal withholding or even I-9 forms. You're always going to have the most up-to-date version of that form because it is electronic and because us at UKG are making sure that you have the most up-to-date information. So I'll complete my W-4, and of course, all of the information that I'm entering is going not only into my employee record, but if it's touching payroll, for example, my withholding, it's going to go into my payroll record as well, so that my withholding is correct. Same thing with completing my direct deposit. If you offer direct deposit to your district, your employees can enter their routing number, their checking number, their multiple different bank accounts. If I want to send 50% of my pay to savings, I can do that when I add a brand new direct deposit. And again, it's not only being saved on my employee record, it's also going to the payroll part of my record as well, so that it's staying consistent. You're not just collecting the data and then having to key it in. It's actually one seamless system if you're using our payroll product as well. And then beneath that is just some very specific school district policies. Maybe I need to fill out a K-12 or my job contract or my job description, and then I have a handbook or I have specific policies. In a real life scenario, my employee to-dos, it's probably going to be a little longer than this because every school district has their own specific set of forms that somebody needs to acknowledge or paperwork that they need to acknowledge, and you can upload your specific documents and create an electronic signature so that your employees are actually acknowledging, for example, a company handbook. So here I included the company handbook, which your employees can download, and then I included just an acknowledgement form, right? Mine is just a basic form where Frank was able to electronically sign off on it, saying that he acknowledges or he will read the handbook at his leisure. And then the last thing here is if this is a full-time benefit eligible employee, the system is smart enough to present the employee with their benefit enrollment process. So during a new hire enrollment, we usually consider this a life change event, but you can also include things like open enrollment because you have this benefit module. So we'll start off with giving your employees just some basic, hey, welcome to open enrollment or welcome to your new hire enrollment information, and then they can select a medical plan, a FSA plan or HSA plan, obviously dental vision, any other ancillary plans that you may offer can be included in this enrollment form. Obviously for ACA purposes, they can also waive medical so that we're capturing that waive electronically as soon as this happens as well. And then your team can also have the ability to compare plans. So if I want to compare, a PPO and a high deductible plan, I can select the plans that I want to compare and then select the attributes. What's the max out of pocket? What is my deductible for each of these plans, and see them side by side so I know what I'm selecting. Again, same thing for FSA, same thing for the other ancillary plans. If you want to include your employer or school district paid benefits on here, we can do that as well so that they see that they're automatically being enrolled in maybe a basic life plan. Now, the absolute beautiful thing about capturing these enrollments electronically is we can then sync them up with your broker or with your carrier and pass those enrollments and dependent and benefit information over to your carriers. So you're not doing that manual entry that you may be doing today. When somebody enrolls in the UKG system, we'll port that over and make sure they're enrolled with your state benefits or your Blue Cross Blue Shield or your UHC, whatever carrier it is that you're using. We can make sure that they get an electronic file and have them get enrolled into their benefits. So not only does that save time for new hires, but it can save money for any people who have separated. I've talked to so many school districts who say, you know, so-and-so left my school district 2 months ago and we're still paying their life insurance, or worse, we're still paying the employee, we're still paying their salary. So having this done electronically can not only save you time, but potentially help you catch any errors and save you money in that regard as well. So that is our onboarding solution that I wanted to show you from Frank's perspective. So let's look at the product from a different perspective. I want to introduce Tammy. Tammy's a paraprofessional. She's already an employee of the district, and she's going to fill out her back to school contract. So I mentioned some individuals are using our checklist for coming back to school. So let's log in to the software as Tammy briefly, just to give you a different perspective of a checklist and how they can be utilized. So again, same look and feel of the product. One thing I may not have mentioned earlier is that the Time for School Plus solution is device agnostic. So whether I'm accessing this on my cell phone or my iPad or tablet, the system is device agnostic, and it's going to be responsive to whatever piece of technology that you're accessing it. So again, I have my to-do list, and I have, in this case, my return to school checklist. So just briefly, the one thing I want to show you from this perspective is the ability to acknowledge maybe, again, an updated handbook, but more importantly, the ability to include your specific employment contracts or offer letters into the Time for School solution. So based on the custom form that I uploaded, I have these fields here, these boxes, which you can see are laid out in blue, that are actually pulling from data from within the employee record. So, I put Dear, and then it's pulling Tammy, from her employee record. And then as I'm executing these or pushing these out, I can put in specifically their pay rate, if that's not something I want to pull in from the employee record, and then pull in the due date for this offer letter, or you need to sign this by so-and-so date, or the offer is no longer valid. So once the employee, looks at their offer letter, they have the ability to electronically sign. So include an actual password signature. So when I go and sign this, I'm prompted to put in my password into the system so that I can actually get, the signature to take place. One thing that we are working on is, what they call an electronic wet signature, where your employees, if they have a touch screen, can actually touch their iPad or tablet and sign with their finger. So that's something that's going to be introduced in the next few months here as a release for electronic signatures. But in most cases, this password signature is what districts are looking for. So once Tammy signs that, she can move on. Notice that she has no access to this final signature. Maybe the final signature is the principal's call or somebody in HR. So we can design these forms with security in mind, so that only the individuals who have to sign are presented with their signature highlighted. The next thing that Tammy needs to do is upload a new credential. So if she got a new certification or a new endorsement, this is an opportunity for Tammy to upload that. Now, this is just one way that you can keep track or have your employees update their credentials. We can also do what is called an HR action, where employees have to fill out a form and then upload a new credential. I just wanted to show you the ability that we do have for employees to upload and import credentials or import documents into the software. So that was just a quick look at Tammy and her perspective of the software. But I now want to go into the system as Anna. Anna is our HR administrator. But really, this persona is going to be, whoever's responsible for these items at your school district. Sometimes it's the principal, sometimes it is somebody in HR. So it's kind of like a catch-all, a day in the life. And that's what I want to show you. So let's jump into the live software as my HR administrator, Anna, and see a day in the life of how Anna can manage her workforce. So again, for those of you already familiar with the Time for School product, we offer dashboards and analytics and reports right away when you get into the system so that you can get in, get the information you need, and get on and move on with your day. The idea is for you not to have to be in the software, 24/7 managing your employees. It's to get you to the information that you need. So the first thing I see as my persona, Anna, is my position and my position management dashboards. At a glance, I have this report here that's showing me my exceeded budget by FTE by position. So the way that I have my positions coded is just very basic, elementary school teacher, high school teacher, middle school teacher. In some cases, you can, I've seen English teacher or English as a second language teacher. You can kind of design these jobs in a way that makes sense for you, for your school district. So these are just my examples. But again, at a glance, before I do anything else, I know that I'm exceeding 1 FTE in regards to the budget that I put into the system for my middle school teachers. I can also get other information. I'm vacant 13 high school teachers. I'm missing 7.25 FTE of paraprofessionals. So I can start to move people around. I know that I'm over 1 middle school teacher, and maybe I can reclassify this individual to work at a different location or to work in a different job because I have the FTE, but I just happen to be over in this scenario. So each of these charts and dashboards are actually reports that I can click on. So if I click on the position name of the dashboard here, I'll go into the report that's actually feeding me all of this data. So again, at a glance, these are just some very basic job titles that I have listed in my demo company, but I can see how many FTEs are assigned versus what is vacant. That's what's feeding my vacant and filled FTEs chart. I can see what's being exceeded. That's what's feeding this chart. And I can see how many hours I'm allocating. But more importantly, I can see how many dollars by position I'm allocating. So again, in my system, my positions and locations are kind of tied. Elementary school teacher are tied together. You can make these whatever makes sense to you and your organizational structure. I just wanted to give you a basic example. Once in this report, I can go even further. Let's look at the middle school teacher position that I have created and get the information behind it. So at a very high level, I have the position and the job description that's tied to it, right? Just some very basic in my demo company. I can see when this position became effective. When we started hiring for this position, where does this position work? You know, what specific campus or location is this position needing to be filled or exist at? And then I can see what I've budgeted, and I can also keep track of what was budgeted over time. So this first line here is my 2020 budget. I've got 2 FTEs allocated, and in my scenario that equals $167,000 that I'm allocating for this position. But back in 2019, I actually had 25 FTEs that were being allocated. In addition to that, I can build rules that allow me or do not allow me to exceed this FTE. So let's say an HR or principal puts in the budget and somebody at a specific location tries to hire over that FTE or over that budget. I can do a couple of things. I can do a hard stop that says do not allow any FTE over 25, or I can do an allow but notify me if it exceeds. So notify someone in HR or notify a specific person that I'm going to, you know, put into the system as the person that needs to be notified. So if it goes over 2 FTE, let it happen but notify it, or do not let it happen so it doesn't go over. Along with this position itself, I can see who is assigned or whoever was assigned to this position. So for example, I'm 1 over right now. I know that Chris Edwards is a half a FTE and Kathy is 1 full FTE. Maybe I want to remove Kathy from this position and put her in a different position. I can do that directly from here. I can end this position for Kathy and then open up a new one. Let's say she's going to an elementary school teacher, and then activate her there directly from the position, and that feeds into the employee record. So that was just a quick, very, very high level view of our position and allocation control and how you can use it at your school district. I have a few other tabs here like leave and benefits, which I'll show you briefly. If I ever need to run a quick benefit census report, these charts give me, you know, the data high level, but of course, if I click into these charts, I can get to the report that is feeding that information behind the scenes and maybe provide this to my broker or need to provide this to my carrier for whatever reason. During open enrollment, being able to track who's actively going through enrollment versus who is not going through enrollment or who hasn't even started, getting a quick visual of that. Right now I have 46 people who are actively going through open enrollment, so I can keep track of that at a glance. Again, we want to provide you the information that you need so you can get into the system and get out and move on with your day job. This last chart here is just some basic, you know, employee information, employee demographic information that I created just to show you a few things. I've got an employee roster which is filtering out or showing me my workforce by ethnicity. Again, I can click into this report, say I need to create a quick employee census report. For those of you not familiar, the way our reporting works in the Time for School Plus solution, very similar to or exactly the same as it works for our Time for School solution, is I'm adding and removing filters, I'm adding and removing columns, and then I can export this report. So let's say I want to limit this down to, in my demo company, it's EIN, but you can say you're limiting it down to a specific location. I'll put in a filter there and I'll reload. And now my report is updated, but also all of my charts are updated to the information that I'm seeing. Let's say that I need to add a column. You know, my employee roster, my employee census is missing cell phone. Everything on the left-hand side is pieces of data that I can add to my report. So I'm going to scroll through it quickly so you can get an idea. You know, there's a whole lot in here. Everything on the right-hand side is my report. This is the report that I'm seeing here. So let's say I want to add a cell phone. I want to add cell phone to my report. I'll click on it because it's in my available columns, and then I'll add it to my existing report. I now want to move that up here and display it after the employee status column. Once I click apply, the system will update and I now have that employee cell phone column. So when it comes to writing reports, this is it. You are adding and removing columns, you are adding and removing filters to your report, so you don't have to have any sort of advanced technical degree and know some code. I know, what I hear often is getting data out of ERP systems is a nightmare. This is probably my favorite part of the solution is writing these reports. It's just how I feel report writing should be. I should be able to just select from a plethora of data elements and add them to my report. And that's the way that we've designed them in the Time for School Plus solution. Once I've created this report or this chart the way that I want it, I can go ahead and export it to a format that I need. So obviously very common format is an Excel report or a CSV file. I can also export this into PDF if I need to. I can also save this report. I can share this report. If I have, when I used to work in HCM and HRIS implementation, I would always have that one manager who didn't know how to write a report or say, hey, I don't know how to do this. I can save this report and then share it with that one manager. So if I don't have the time or we're not in the same building, I can't show this person how to actually create this report. I'll just create it for them, click on their name, and then apply to my selection. And I've now shared the outline of the report that I created with Antoinette. So I don't, especially if we're working remote right now, I can't walk over to Antoinette and show her how to do this. I can quickly build the report and share it that way. The other great thing about these reports is they're not just filled with data, they're also actionable. So let's say I want to filter this down to Tammy. Tammy's an individual that I visited earlier. From here, I can see the data, but I can also directly go to Tammy's employee profile. So my reports are also actionable. I can follow a trail of breadcrumbs per se and go into specific records that I need to when I'm looking at a report. So once in Tammy's report, this is labeled out or kind of laid out to me as, think of it as a manila folder with different tabs in it. We've got her main information, her payroll, HR, schedules, and ACA. That's the way that I've laid it out because that's what makes sense for me. You do have the ability to edit your tabs and your headers and move parts of this profile around in a way that you want to see it. I mentioned being able to track K-12 certifications with endorsements. So if that's what's important to me, I'll go down to her certification menu and see when her records are valid. So I can schedule these reports to fire off to HR and alert me when somebody's certificate or endorsement is about to expire. So I can see that information. I can see for Tammy specifically, if she's got an English endorsement, I can add a very unique column. So we call them custom defined fields where you can call these whatever you want to keep track of information that you need. So this is just one example of how we are helping school districts maintain their day-to-day. So with that, I want to conclude our demonstration for today. Really, this was just a sneak peek into our HCM Time for School Plus offering. I hope you got a good idea of how we can help you and your district. I encourage you, if you want more information, if you want a more custom or tailored demo to your specific scenario, please let us know. We're happy to schedule some time. I'm so excited that we are helping school districts with the solution, especially during these times. I think we've been able to highlight some of our infrastructure weaknesses as we've been talking about through this entire webinar. And I really think that this HCM tool is another way that you can, be more streamlined, be more efficient, and at the end of the day, do more with less.